Do you want something? I suppose I have a moment. Did you want something? Make it quick. Hate doesn't describe it. I suppose that depends on how much of the kingdom was left by then. So far as anyone could tell, she was the undisputed monarch of the whole world. I've seen painted, masked lords beat an old farmer to death with riding crops. To this day, I don't know why. Is that hate? Honora always did have a flair for the dramatic. She could have been a bard. I saw good, sensible men fight armoured chevaliers with nothing. No weapons, no armies, not even hope of success to see the occupation end. Is that hate? You won't believe me when I tell you this, but it doesn't matter. I never fought because I hated Loghain. This was for Merrick and for Reldon. He was my friend. If he'd wanted to conquer the Fade, I would have led the charge. I was hunting, well, poaching, to be entirely honest, when a boy my own age came stumbling out of the woods. He was so dirty you'd have thought he'd been dug up out of the ground. I didn't say that. Honora's a politician at heart. There's one thing she knows. It's how to move people. Howe suggested the possibility. I rejected it, of course. Undoubtedly, that discussion was the inspiration for her story. The past is always with us. It's in our bones and our blood, and we wear it on our skin. You can think otherwise, but you'll never get far without it. Nothing about war is right. It's a force of nature, like rain, or wind, or faith. It simply exists, and we deal with its consequences. What does that matter? I didn't want to start a war. I wanted to stop one. I made a tactical error. I failed. So I suppose my intentions don't amount to much. Of course, he was my king. More importantly, he was my friend. Death doesn't end that. In any case, there's no use discussing this. We have much work left to do. Should I? How do you give up what's grown into you? No, it doesn't. I failed. Lives were in my hands, and I failed. Nothing excuses that. It's odd to hear you say that. I can still see the accusations you haven't voiced hovering around you like a swarm of hornets. For what it's worth, though, thank you. It's a fine idea, peace. But it isn't part of who we are. Do you think the Maker abandoned us on a whim? No. He left us because we deserved it. Why did we fight Loghain, do you know? We fought them because they came here, plain and simple. And why did they attack us? Because we were here. Tell me again that war is something we bring upon ourselves. My reasons weren't wrong. I wanted to defend my home. I made tactical errors, however. There are men who inspire such devotion that everyone around would lay down their lives for him. And there are men who would come and go from this world, and no one notes it. What makes them so? Your guess is as good as mine. Merrick was remarkable. That's all I can say of him. He nearly did. Merrick was never one to avoid his duty, and given his preference, he would have acknowledged his son no matter the circumstance. But he had more than his honour to think of. It would have ruined Rowan, after all. She'd be reduced to a concubine in the eyes of our neighbours, and put Caelan's status as heir in question. So Merrick made the hard choice. Eamon offered to raise the boy, and that was that. I was turned by then, and a general. You can buy respect through birth or by bloodshed, I've found. Honora's only real loyalty is to herself. She's capable and determined, but she'll sacrifice anything for her own goals. Remember that. You should have known that when she made her appearance at the Lands Meet. This is hardly news. It's a foolish question. I'm sure you think me capable of every sort of evil, but Honora is my only child. She'd fall, skin her knees, and command them to stop stinging. It may have worked, too. I suppose she was. It's the peculiar joy of parents to be terrorized by their children, however. She bleeds just like anyone. Or are you surprised that my daughter ever fell down? It took you this long to determine that? I'm surprised. Well, I'm sure having you come to her rescue gave Honora no small amount of pleasure. Of course not. I had no idea who he was. He gave me a made-up name, told me he was fleeing Orlesians. I know a bard would make it out to be better, but it isn't a story to me. I lived it. There were no heroes or villains, no great deeds, no endings, happy or otherwise. Yes, I didn't find out who he was for a while, though. That's a story for another time, I'm afraid. I've gone on too long as it is. But I've rattled on for too long already. We should get moving. Kings don't get the luxury of escaping politics. What do you think would have become of Alistair if Merrick had claimed him? But we've been idle long enough. We should get moving. He would have been the bastard prince and a continual reminder to Rowan of Merrick's infidelity. At least with Eamon, Alistair had a childhood. Eamon is a shrewd man. He'll be advising the boy. They'll do all right, I suppose. Honora is a good queen. She has been for 5 years now. Once the border was secure, the army would have regrouped to push back the Darkspawn in the south. There was never any question in my mind that Honora would remain on the throne. It's easy to say now. We couldn't, especially after Ostagar. It wasn't an ideal plan, but it seemed necessary at the time. When chevaliers were massing on our doorstep, things were a little less clear. After all, who else was there? Merrick had no brothers or sisters. Most of the Therans were publicly hung by Megran when he took power. Is that a serious question? Is there someone else you know of who could stand up to the Landsmeet? Believe what you like, it makes no difference to me. Are we done, then? One life. After all this trouble, it seems like such a small thing to give up to see this land safe, doesn't it? You think so? Suppose you've never been a soldier. The currency of war is life. You pay it and pray that the outcome is worthwhile. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised at your success. You beat me. Perhaps you can do this after all. You think so, do you? Curiously, it's harder to send another man to die. It's easy to die for your cause. Sometimes men do it without even knowing. It's so much harder to live for it, bearing the weight of the dead. You'll have to. You're commanding the armies you've raised, aren't you? If it comes to that, yes, gladly. And if there isn't? Do we refuse to accept this solution because it doesn't suit us? What about Honora? What about Leliana? And what does your Antivan think of that? Well, you better start, then. I never said otherwise. Oh, everyone has a strategy for dealing with it. Most of the generals I've known took to drink. Some took to religion. It's a matter of personal choice, I suppose. You don't need my advice. You'll figure it out on your own. No one can tell you how to live with yourself. You just do. Ask me again after this is over. Wait until after the battle. There's no use trying to cope with what hasn't happened yet. If anyone should make this sacrifice, it ought to be me. Maker knows I have enough to atone for. I suppose we're not going to get another try. If you fail, certainly. I can advise you, but this is your battle. This army was built from nothing by you. They'll not follow me. I've wondered that myself, from time to time. However you may feel about it, though, you are in command. You better learn to accept the consequences. To command an army, you have to be close enough to your men to know what you're risking, and still think of them as tools that might need to be thrown away. About the coming battle, or about commanding troops, you'll deal with the results, just like everyone else. If I were a wise man, I wouldn't have made the mistakes that brought me here. You do well enough on your own. You'll have to wait until we have some reports from the scouts. You can't plan blindly. Well, not well, anyway. What about your sorceress? What does she think of this? I can't argue with your choice. It's the one I would make myself. You have a life, yet don't be in a hurry to give it up. Not when there are alternatives. There's much more at stake than our own lives. And should it come to that, she's always been a very practical child. I'm sure she'll find a way to turn it to her political advantage. She'll understand. She's been a soldier's daughter all her life, after all. There is, however, no use worrying about what may be. We'll have to wait and see what comes. Nothing. Don't mind me. It hardly matters now. I've certainly been mistaken about you before. If you didn't already expect that, I've no idea what to say to you. Gwaran sits in between the Brazilian forest and the sea. It's far from the old Tevinter roads. The village by our keep was never even as big as Redcliffe. There were always a few children around, charcoal burners, sons and daughters mostly, or the children of servants. They formed into noisy gangs in the courtyard for their games, but Honora never joined them. I don't know. Children are in some ways vicious animals, forming packs and defending them from outsiders. Honora was always an outsider. Caelan. He was a bit younger than she was, but Honora would lead him about the palace like a puppy on a leash, deep in adventures together. I believe the two of them once fought an army of ogres in the wine cellar. That was their explanation for all the broken bottles, anyway. Perhaps it was. She read a great deal. She followed her mother like a shadow about the gardens. She practiced archery and sword play. She was never idle, because it was vacant, and though it's off the trade routes close to Denerim, it was a good place for children to grow up. If you're expecting some particular insight into my daughter's character, I'm afraid I'm probably not the best source. I'm hardly impartial. You think so? I'm not certain of that myself. No, I suppose you wouldn't be either. So I've heard. I think you already know the answer to that. We understand one another, as much as any father and daughter ever do. She already told you why, you just didn't care for the answer. Politics. You already know the answer to that. Politics. But this is not really the time or place to discuss my daughter. We have work to do. Very well, then. Is that a serious question? This isn't the time. We can sit around the campfire reminiscing about lost friends after the blight is over. There's little point in speculating. There are too many things requiring our attention to waste time wondering what might have been. I imagine you've made up your mind on the answer to that question already. I can't even imagine what brought that subject up. I hardly think this is relevant to anything. Hate really doesn't describe it. Let's just leave it at that. Of course, go ahead. But enough about Honora. We ought to get moving. He had no education in governing, politics, or diplomacy. And though I know you don't wish to hear this, he doesn't strike me as a talented amateur. Doing all right is not the same as doing well. I was trying to be polite. Your friend may get good advice from Eamon, but he's weak. All the bands know it. You can see them. A pack of wild dogs waiting for a bone. The first chance they get, they'll pry concessions out of him. They'll pick at the throne until it's only a gilded chair with no power or authority at all. By all means, hope for some better outcome. I certainly shall. I just won't expect it. Because Eamon, for all his merits, is a conservative man. He believes in tradition and inheritance, and would never see the daughter of a freeholder, however gifted, in power. Honora, as you may have already noticed, is clever enough to manipulate the bands. She can make alliances and play them against one another to get what she wants. As you wish, by all means. And if there'd been any other heir, Eamon would never have suggested the boy. No? You might want to wonder then how a blood mage ended up employed by his household. How likely was it that only Isolde was aware of Connor's gift? Eamon knew, and he allowed it to be hushed up so the boy could remain heir. Better that than allow the Arling to go to his childless younger brother, only to pass out of the hands of the Guerin family altogether. I was a Tyrant, but my father was a farmer, as was his father and all the generations of MacTears that history remembers. And Celia, my wife, was a cabinet-maker's daughter. Hardly a royal pedigree. This discussion profits no one. I may be wrong. I will certainly hope so. Whatever she might think, I never took power from Honora. She may have felt threatened, but I most pointedly did not remove her from the throne. Caelan wore the crown very well, but he was never the one guiding the country. I am a bit, but she'll do well. I have to say that anyway, for if word gets back to her that I said otherwise, she'll be furious. In all seriousness, Honora is formidable. You should know that by now. I'm not a seer. If I could predict the future, I wouldn't be here now. They always have before. Few among the nobles have ever been under any illusions as to who really held power in Denerim. No one is born wise. We only get that way by enduring. I passed your test. Fate has a twisted sense of humor, it seems. I suppose you think I'm some sort of monster. More so since I survived your ritual. You keep striking at me, and I just refuse to die decently. You're a poor liar, you know. It's kind of you to say so all the same. Yes, I know. You weren't the only one disappointed by the outcome. Oh? What was all that nonsense with the Darkspawn blood and mages, then? A puppet show? It seems to me that magic has already failed. I'd recommend a sharp knife in the kidneys next time. Less impressive, but it gets the job done. Ah, now there's the venom I expected. Well, is that it? Surely you've more to say to me than that. Swear at me in Dwarven if you run out of common epithets. I assure you, I'll be just as wounded even when I don't know what you're saying. When you run out of common insults, you can try Elven. I won't understand them, but I promise to be offended nonetheless. I've heard the alienage speaks profanity as a native tongue. Feel free to indulge yourself. Go on, try out all the curses and insults you know. I'll teach you some new ones if they don't suffice. I suppose it does lack the element of surprise. Well, what shall we do to settle things between us then? Why should I? I'm a strategist by trade, after all. Should a fine plan be abandoned simply because it ends in my own demise? That seems like such a waste of a good idea. So what is it you think you can have me do, then, that will be so much worse than death? We must settle things between us somehow or other, or neither of us will get any work done. So, what will it be? Honestly, Elf, do you think that, among all my crimes, is the one that keeps me up at night? That's a bit egotistical of you, don't you think? Do you honestly think that among all my crimes, that is the one that keeps me awake at night? Is that the best you have? I'm disappointed. It doesn't even offend me because it happens to be true. I've killed enough men now with my own hands or by command that they're beyond counting. By all means, tell me again how I murdered Cailan. I find the topic inexhaustibly fascinating. There is no possibility, of course, that Cailan's poor judgment in leading the charge against my advice caused his death. Oh! Now that actually struck a glancing blow. Good work. And now what? Am I to be some trophy of your victory? The defeated enemy you drag about on a leash wherever you go? Or have you some worse fate in mind for me? Because he fell in battle, his part in the massacre at Ostagar must be excused, and because I survived, all responsibility must fall to me. The plight of a few dozen elves, in the face of all the hundreds who died at Ostagar, the countless others fighting the civil war that followed, seems irrelevant. And because you stopped it, the army we have to face the Blight is a third the size it should be. And many more elves wait in the alienage, defenceless for the Darkspawn to reach them. Which fate is worse, I wonder, to live as a slave, or to die without hope in the alienage? Of course not, I'm a soldier. Conscience has no place in war. I think that their suffering, while real enough, is a drop in the ocean now. Because it seemed necessary at the time. Got people out of the most indefensible part of the city and put money in the coffers at the same time. The whole kingdom is about to be lost. What does principle matter now? But the truth of things hardly matters now. You've won. You can decide whatever you like about my guilt. Is that punishment meant for me or for you? Or what? You'll kill me? Go ahead. Yes, well, you can thank me for that later. I don't know what concession you want from me, Warden. I expect my word will not satisfy you. The joining was my death sentence anyway. It's hardly my fault that it failed to produce the desired result, Warden. Nothing I can say will prove that. Either I will be worthy of trust or I won't. I assure you, it's foremost on my mind. I'd be delighted to. It is, however, a small camp. We could dig a moat down the middle of it, perhaps. It'll create some difficulty finding a place to pitch tents, I'm afraid. Indeed, I'd almost forgotten that. Thank you for the reminder. Honora is strong enough to endure. She may make a few mistakes along the way, but she'll survive them. But this isn't the time to discuss such things. And just like that, we're allies. I can't imagine it's so simple. It is, however, what we've chosen to be. And I don't think changing that is a simple matter.
I think it's time we got to the point here. What do you want from me? My execution was all but arranged. If you'd wanted me dead, you could have had your wish at the Landsmeet. I assume, then, that you have something else in mind. I can't imagine that you spared my life in the Landsmeet by accident. You have some plan in mind. What I want...
What an odd question. Fortunate for me, then, that I've always been a man to take chances. Mercy is a strange creature. They say the sword that struck Andraste was mercy. Your mercy is to leave me in the fire. That's the harsher punishment, certainly, and I can hardly argue that it's more than I deserve. Your candour, Warden, is inspiring. Let me follow your example. You and I have been adversaries for some time, and I don't expect that to change now. I want to ride back to Denerim and sit in the war room and find no empty chairs at the table. I want to lose, nothing else. I want a line clearly drawn that I can defend. I want an end to this war. All of this can rightly be called my fault. Whether or not you can do better remains to be seen. But if you can make this the end, Warden, I will follow you, I swear it. I'm hardly blind to the irony of this situation. I'm no Chantry scholar. I don't know which is the cruel fate and which is the kind one. Despite what we each wanted, we're both here now facing the same enemy, and we can be of use to one another, however little we may enjoy that fact. I suppose I ought to be grateful. I have at least some chance now of putting right some of the things I have done. I am a soldier, you know, and it has come to my attention that you've been looking to build some armies. I never doubted that. Very well. It'll give me an excellent vantage point to see if you can actually lead an attack against the Blight. We should speak no more of this at present. Time's wasting. I suppose we'll see how long that lasts. Andraste, help us then. Well, we'll see how far that gets you. Yes, I know what you think of me. You imagine I throw lives away without giving it a thought. I doubt you'll believe me. But I'll tell you a secret that all generals must learn. This was always meant to end in my death. You said so yourself. You've been kinder to me than I've deserved, so I'm going to tell you plainly that you should reconsider. Glory? No. But forgiveness? Perhaps. She'll be all right. She's not alone, after all. I thought I was just here to watch the camp. Solitude isn't terrible, you know. She had a free rein over the woods. Let's see what this Riordan has to say. So, it is done. You said before that you did not wish to take the final blow, so allow me. This is, after all, what I'm here for, no? Come, let's not fool each other. My joining the Grey Wardens was a death sentence. If I survive the joining, it seems only fitting that it can be because I was destined to perish here. Do you think I will be remembered as a hero? I'm not so certain. If I can die a hero in the service of Ferelden, then I do so gladly. Nothing about what I've done has been easy, but I have much to atone for. And if my death can serve some purpose here, then I would greet it gladly. I would have expected you to kill me for what I did to you, and you didn't. You have proven a friend. I thought all along that only I could save Ferelden, but it was you. Please, I've done so much wrong. Allow me to do one last thing right. I would have expected you to kill me for what I did to you, and yet you did not. We've fought together, but we're not friends, nor should we be. Allowing me to take this blow in your stead should cause you no remorse. There's no love lost between us, and no reason for my death to cause you remorse. Allow me one last act to make up for what I have done. Perhaps, but why should you be the one to die? You're the reason this creature lies defeated, not I. Why not? After all that I've done, I would think there'd be no argument from you or anyone. Good, I was hoping that there would be no argument. I salute you. The Grey Wardens could not have chosen finer. Would that I had been wise enough to realize that sooner. I salute you. You have defeated the Blight before it could truly begin. My only regret is that my foolishness almost prevented you from doing so. I do my duty now as I always have.
with all my heart. There's no need for you to take the final blow. Allow me. Isn't this why I'm here? I'm surprised you're still awake. I was also surprised to see the marsh witch outside your room earlier, glowering quite intensely even for she. Is something amiss, and it involves me in some capacity? That is an odd way to begin. Very well. You have my attention. As strange as it may seem, I would agree with that assessment. I owe you a great deal, though I would never have foreseen this coming to pass. Had someone asked me not weeks ago, I would have said such a thing to be patently impossible. But as events have proven to me, life is anything but predictable. I follow you because I'm bound to your service, and that is all. If you have something to tell me of, then do so. I don't care for the sound of that. What are we talking about exactly? I see. I would ask if you were joking, but of course you're not, are you? I should never underestimate your capacity to do the unexpected, but this seems a stretch even for you. So, you intend to save us from the archdemon through, well, this ritual? What kind of magic demands such an act? The abomination of legend. This is the source of the ritual? How charming. A child? With me as the father and the marsh witch as the mother? I cannot think of anything more ludicrous. Nor why you or she would even be interested in such an outcome. More mysterious nonsense, I see. That at least makes some manner of sense. Of course that is what she would want. I would rather not speak to her at all. So that is what this is about. Some magical means to bypass Riordan's death sentence. I see. So you have said. True enough, it smacks of blood magic to me, but I've resorted to it myself when needed. Even so, none of this is necessary. If Riordan fails, simply let me take that final blow. Let me make amends for what I've done, if it comes to that. That may be true. I could die before ever reaching the dragon. Still, this is unwise. Do not ask me to be a part of it. Perhaps not, but if you are so attached, then why do you not lie with the woman? I find it difficult to believe I'm so special. You could order me to obey you, yet you do not. If this is truly what you think is wise, then I will do as you ask. Let us find the marsh witch and do this thing quickly before I change my mind. Then my decision is clear. I cannot do this. My dignity is all I have left, and I will surrender it only if you order me to. You demand a great deal, but I suppose I'm bound to obey you now, am I not? I've done far worse in the name of duty. Simply agree? Based on what you've told me? It's madness. If you wish me to do this thing, you must order me to do so. Ah! So that's what this is all about, is it? It's good of you to finally say so. I have no need to save my own life, but if this could save yours, you need not pay for my mistakes any more than you have. I doubt there will be any dissuading you from this, if that is so. I have little reason to refuse. The answer, however, is still no. The only lives I wish to save are those of the Ferelden people. Give me an order, or leave me be. I'm willing to do whatever it takes if Riordan fails to slay the dragon. I suppose the question really is, are you? Either way, if you wish me to do this thing, you will have to order me. I'll not do it otherwise. And I am bound to obey you. Truth be told, I've done far worse in the name of duty. But this is your doing, not mine. That will have to be enough. Thank you. It's a kindness I shall not forget. I suggest you go and tell the witch, well, tell her whatever you wish. I intend to get some rest while I can. I'm not seeking glory or an end to my punishment. I'm thinking only of my duty. Please, I wish no part in this. Do not ask it of me. That is appreciated, but it is far too late for me. Do not ask me to do this thing. Surely not a request made out of sentiment. We're hardly comrades in arms. No, I wish no part in this. Do not ask it of me. I feel ill at ease. I do not trust that witch and have no idea why you do. This thing you wish of me is unwise. Do not ask me to be a part of it. You're joking. You are joking, I hope. I see that you're not. I suppose I should not underestimate your capacity to take the bizarre approach when required. Just what is this ritual supposed to accomplish? That makes sense. I can see why you might think that important. What kind of magic is this? I've never heard of such a rite. Sounds like nothing the Circle has ever spoken of. My life requires no saving. Yours, however, I would not want anyone else to pay for my mistakes, it is true. My life requires no saving. Quite frankly, I see no pressing need for yours to be preserved either, though you no doubt disagree.
But I also fail to see how my laying with the Marsh Witch could save anyone. What manner of magic is this?
I see, so simply do as I'm told by my superior Grey Warden. That is what you would have me do? That is vague, to say the least. I can, however, understand looking for an advantage in battle, no matter where it comes from. But what manner of advantage can this offer? I've never heard of a spell that calls for such an act. And what is my part? Why did the witch not come and speak to me of this herself? I will assume that this is not simply for your amusement. This is the way to avoid death you spoke of, yes? A ritual, then? What manner of ritual calls for such an act? Of everything I might have thought you would ask of me, that is indeed the very last. I see. I assume you speak of the Archdemon and Riordan's revelation. You already stated that you did not wish to take the final blow. As for me, you need not concern yourself. I made a mistake. A mistake I intend to make up for, if it comes to that. I intend to do my duty. Now, unless there's something you actually wish to ask of me, I have no intention of avoiding the battle or fleeing, if that is what you speak of. You need not concern yourself for my welfare. Excellent. I find the direct method is best. I'm not a man to dance around the issue, after all. I never sleep before battle. My mind whirls and is impossible to settle. It will be strange to be an outsider within a Ferelden army. But now you've changed the subject, I would prefer to change it back, unless there's a reason to avoid discussing why you've come. If you're certain, as you wish.
I intend to get some rest while there's still time. I suggest you do the same.
The traitorous bootlickers who just murdered the Queen, though I didn't know it at the time. He was bloody, exhausted, and obviously being hunted. I offered to take him to my father's camp. Every Ferelden was a poacher or a thief, as far as the Orlesians were concerned. Let's not spend more time here than we must.